Hi, I'm Revan the Nub, Apex Master Season 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. With the new Olympus split coming up, I wanted to do a tier list of all the legends that you should be using. There is a lot of useful information in this, but if you just want to see my end result tier list and my summary of the legends, go ahead and skip to the time code called summary, but I highly recommend you watch the whole video. It's up to you. I wanted to caveat this with a few things before we get started. Number one, the current meta in ranked is an ape meta. What that means, what ape means, is that basically most people just choose to fight rather than actually strategically position. The reason for this is unlimited KP. Kill points, KP, is what you get whenever you kill a person. And that in return gives you RP. Now, with unlimited, which is unheard of in the past, that means you can have absolutely massive games. So if you get a 12, 20 kill point game, you can get huge RP gains. So what that has led to is people going for very large games rather than consistent games, whether or not that's right or not. So the legends that are meta right now are usually very aggressive legends, and other defensive legends just simply aren't as meta. The second caveat is I am talking about on average who is the best legends to play. We all have a friend who's an absolute demon on Rampart or Vantage or whatever it is. They should play those characters, but this is on average who is the best. So we have S through F tier. Most legends are going to fall into B and C tier. In S tier, we're going to have easily 3 legends. Horizon. Horizon is very broken right now, as she has been for a long time. She's hyper aggressive. She has the ability to get her entire team to height. Her ultimate is a game changer. It can be used aggressively or defensively. Also in S tier right now, we have Seer. He needs a nerf really, really bad. We have not gotten that nerf, but he can literally scan enemies. They stay scanned for a long time. He cancels reses. He cancels meds. His ultimate gives the entire team literally radar in a confined area for a 30 seconds, a minute. It's a long time. Seer is just really, really strong, especially in a team environment. And then on top of that, his passive makes it impossible for people to sneak up on you if you have a very competent Seer. I think Valkyrie is still S tier even after her nerfs. I think Valkyrie for most players is S tier, but if you're a very high tier player, she might be more like A tier because she makes up for bad rotations or getting caught out of zone when you should be in zone. So you can make the non-aggressive play or the aggressive play on Valkyrie because of her ultimate. And then the rest of her abilities aren't bad either. Her passive being able to fly around and her rockets are useful, but it's the ultimate that's that cherry on top. Now in A tier, I think we have Bloodhound. Some people would put him in S tier right now. Bloodhound is an absolute demon. Sometimes people run double scans, so they'll run Horizon or Valkyrie, and then they'll run Seer and Bloodhound on the same team. Very, very strong. Bloodhound's just really good, hyper aggressive legend. Generally, you would scan first and then use your ultimate so you get your scans on a lower cooldown, and then you'll just ape the crap out of a team. I think Bloodhound is particularly good on controller. Bangalore is also A tier. I hate to say it. I don't really like playing with Bangalore's because Bangalore generally is misplayed. Her smokes, using them correctly is very important because they can be an aid or a detriment to your team. Most people, it's a detriment because they do not know how to use the smokes correctly. Smoking everything out is a bad idea. You need to be able to punish people walking up on you. If you get cracked, then you smoke yourself and your team cannot then punish the enemy who's going to be full sending you because they can't see. And on the terms of ape meta, we have Maggie. Maggie is also excellent right now. She's great on controllers since you don't have to put your shotgun away. You can still run at full speed with a shotgun. PK is going to be on the ground on the Olympus split. I think all these champions are great for Olympus. Olympus is both big and small at the same time. With a combination of Maggie, Bangalore, Valkyrie, and Horizon, you can basically get to anywhere on the map that you could possibly want. Now we move on to B tier. I think Ashe is a really good B tier legend. Ashe's ultimate is so powerful because you can literally crack or down an enemy and instantly capitalize on it. The downside of that is you need your team to back you up. So if your team isn't coordinated or cooperating, she might not be as effective because her tactical is just meh. I don't think her passive is that great for Olympus. Olympus, you can generally hear shots on half the map, but her ultimate is really strong as long as you're coordinated. I think Wraith is sitting in B tier right now. You know, she has that get out of jail free card. Her portal for short range precise repositions is pretty good on Olympus. Olympus has open areas, but most of them are relatively small now since they've broken up the map a little bit more. I think Fuse actually sits in B tier. Fuse is super annoying. There's a lot of power positions on Olympus, and Fuse can really use his knuckle clusters and ultimate to capitalize on those. A lot of Fuse players, the mistake that they make is they're actually using knuckle clusters, grenades, all that too much. They rely on that rather than just shooting the enemy, which would sometimes be more effective. But Fuse is really strong in the right hands and very annoying at the very least. I think Catalyst actually falls solidly in B tier. She's like an aggressive defensive legend. You know, she can zone off enemies in the buildings that are on Olympus. Her ultimate can get you across those open spaces because they're relatively short on Olympus, or split up a team and delay a fight or a third party. Now, most legends are going to fall into C tier. I think Vantage is solidly in C tier. She's mostly just annoying. I find her tactical to be a little bit janky, and if you were playing against good players, they can beam you out of your tactical. Her ultimate is not that important. Like, usually you can figure out what shields people have just by shooting them. I think in a more defensive meta, she might be better for evaluating whether a team is good to fight or not. But right now, Vantage is mostly just annoying rather than purely useful. I think Pathfinder as a team legend is in C tier right now. If you are solo queue, I think Pathfinder could be a lot higher with the aggression, but it's too easy for Pathfinder to. So I think Octane is in C tier. He's not higher because his stim has a huge cost to it. The amount of health that you lose with your stim literally takes you from like having a red armor, you stim like twice, and now it's basically like having full health and a blue armor. It's really easy to lose 1v1s because you are too low on health if you're not properly managing his stims. His pad is useful, but it's really easy to shoot people off of, especially if you're on M and K. Overall, he just hasn't been meta for a while. He's sitting in C tier. He's not useless, but he has a lot of downsides to him. I think Lifeline is sitting in C tier. I think it's easier on Lifeline on Olympus to get a reset, which is why I'm putting her in C tier. It's also really, really, really easy to get a gold knockdown shield on Olympus, which is also why I bumped her up to C tier above like maybe D tier. So she can be a lot more useful and very, very annoying. But that also brings me to my next one, Newcastle. I think Newcastle also sits in C tier rather than on Broken Moon. I think he's D or E tier for the average player, but I think he's actually C tier. And the only reason is on Olympus, golden knockdowns are way more common. You have the balls dropping from the 1 POI. You have many spots on Olympus where you can get gold loot. And then you also have the boxing ring, which once again has gold balls in it where you can get gold loot. It's so easy to get gold knockdowns. You guys got to be careful about people getting resets on Olympus. And that's why both of these guys are in C tier. If they are played by very good players, then I would bump them up to B tier or A tier. But again, we're talking about average players here. I think they're in C tier. I think Loba also sits solidly in C tier. Olympus is pretty loot flush. You don't need as much loot on Olympus. Like World's Edge, I think Loba is like A or S tier because loot is terrible. It's really important to get her ultimate down. I think on Olympus, it's a lot less important. You're usually not down bad for loot. So she sits solidly in C tier. She's got good abilities. You just don't need that much loot. It just kind of depends. I think on Olympus, D tier would be Caustic. Caustic's a super strong character. He's just not as strong in the 8 meta, and he's not as strong on Olympus. Olympus has a lot less buildings to play. Are there buildings? Yes. There's just not power position buildings as much, and a lot of the buildings are extremely vulnerable and not very good for Caustic. I think Crypto sits solidly in D tier. Crypto's a really good character and he can be super effective, but one of Crypto's most effective parts is whenever he's going against other defensive characters. So defensive characters, their kryptonite is Crypto. He can EMP and it will literally destroy all gas traps, all Watson fences. The thing is, defensive characters simply aren't being played, and all the characters that are being played are hyper aggressive movement characters or hyper aggressive characters. They can easily get away from the EMP usually, or it doesn't affect them at all because they're too far away. And with that, Watson, she's not bad, but again, Olympus just not as good. The buildings aren't as good. Watson is simply not as effective. So again, with defensive legends, Rampart is sitting in D tier. Is she good? Yeah, she's okay. She can be used very, very effectively, especially by the right player. I've definitely been outplayed by Ramparts before, or I've been so annoyed because of Rampart. But there's a lot of open space. There's not a whole lot of power positions. There's definitely a few points in the map where Rampart's really, really effective. It's ape meta. Everybody is going to ape you. They are going to find an angle. And even if it's not smart, they are going to send you. Rampart is not going to be your cure. Also in D tier is Gibby. Let's go over all of his abilities. He used to be an S tier legend, but for Olympus, in ape meta, he just isn't. His passive, he gets the arm shield. That's great for poking. That's great for bubble fights. Those just don't happen as often. He has his dome shield. Again, you usually don't need that. It's not that it's useless. It's usually you don't need it. And sometimes it can even be a detriment. And then his ultimate is mostly for moving players away from a spot that you want them to. It can be defensive. It can be offensive. It's a reposition tool. That's not as often needed in the current meta. It's not that Gibby's never useful. It's just that other characters are more useful. Mirage goes solidly in E tier. So I'm sorry, Mirage players. I think Mirage is super fun. He's just not a team player. He literally is not effective for his team. The only good thing about Mirage right now is that he kind of counters Seer. So Mirage is very confusing for Seer's ultimate because they all show up as blips. So depending on where you ult at as Mirage, you can really bamboozle a Seer. But that is literally the only use that he has. It's very niche and he's not really a team player. And in F tier, we have Revenant. Revenant's ultimate is literally useless. I literally will not take Revenant's ultimate. Revenant's ultimate is always a detriment because you will play totally different after you take the totem. You'll play hyper aggressive. But what if there's actually a team behind you? Because you will never fight alone on any map in this meta. You will never fight alone. If another team comes up, you're playing hyper aggressive, not caring about your life because you have death protection. The other team destroys your totem, which has happened multiple times to me this split. You are just out of luck. You literally just threw your game because if you have one person go down in this meta, you are not going to get that reset 90% of the time. You are simply out and done. And that's why Revenant's just not good. His silence is actually really effective. It lasts for an obscene amount of time. His passive isn't bad, but his ultimate is literally useless. So useless. It's actually like bad to take. That is why Revenant is an F tier. Please buff Revenant. Let's get an ultimate rework going. All right, so let's just recap. S tier, Horizon. She's got that ultimate. She's got that lift. It's really great. Literal legal wall hacks. Free rotates when you screw up. This guy literally also has like free see-through shit for smoke. You can reposition and push people around, and you can go super speedy if somebody shoots at you. You throw a big bowling ball and bowl your enemies down like bowling pins. Really cool. You can ape somebody if you crack them. That's pretty lit, but you got to have homies to help you out. You get a free reposition tool. You're an Australian who loves guns. You love crystals and you can do some crazy stuff. Not that great in this meta. Most people are going to ape and die. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Doesn't have any reposition tools, but she can reset your team, especially if she's got a gold knockdown. Pretty lit on gold knockdown. Don't really need looting as much on Olympus because there's a lot of loot. Don't need defensive legends on Olympus in the current meta. This is good against defensive legends, but since we don't need defensive legends, we don't need this guy. Again, defensive legend. Not as good as Newcastle in the current meta for resetting. Very useless, extremely useless. And guys, that is my tier list as a many time Apex Master Plus. I hope that was useful and I hope it influences you and I hope to play against you in ranked.